well, this has been ongoing news, but a lot of the Republicans are dying of COVID, basically because they think that if they don't take the COVID shot and they die, they're doing it to spite Biden. Um, but that's on them. If they die, I don't feel bad for it. COVID 19 is increasingly a red state phenomenon among the many statistical analysts that demonstrate the remarkable effectiveness of the vaccine. Perhaps the starkest are those that reveal a dramatic divergence in pandemic severity between the red and blue states. David Leonhardt of the New York Times had pointed out on Monday, before we had vaccines, there simply was not a strong partisan pattern to the spread of the disease. But after vaccines became widely available, and especially as Republican voters refused to vaccinate in large numbers, a gap in the COVID's death toll quickly emerged. Now that difference between red and blue America has grown faster over the past month, Leonhardt wrote, to the point where counties where a large majority voted for Trump have a death rate more than 3 times higher than the rate that in the heavily Biden counties. And Leonhardt tweeted out these statistics in a chart for him as well. And I'm gonna have to turn my tablet around so you guys can see this. But he tweeted this out. But it turned out that these differences largely offset each other in 2020, or maybe they didn't matter as much as some people assumed, but either way, the per capita death toll in blue America and red America was similar by the final weeks of 2020. But now you go to a current tweet that's down at the bottom where he gives the breakdown. The vaccines prove so powerful, and the partisan attitudes toward them are so different that a gap in COVID's death toll quickly emerged. It has grown over the course of the year and is now at its wildest point. He's got it out here, and you see a blue line, a gray line, and a red line, like that. I don't know if you guys can see that, but obviously not. It's like right there, and you can see the line, and it's giving a breakdown of where the stuff is. And that says late last month, Duke sociologist Kieran Healy broke down the county level data even further, showing that the death rate is proportional to the strength of the Republican partisanship. Now, the polarization of death and the red line, there indicates all the people that have died from COVID in the Republican counties. It's hard to really see that though. But it's tempting both on the left and the mainstream media circles to write off these differences as a matter of ignorance versus information. But Leonhardt gently phrased this narrative in his piece as a matter of irrational fears about vaccine caused by disinformation that was promoted by the right wing media. Social media takes are a little more blunt, but how dumb yokels in red areas are stupidly falling for vaccine misinformation while the big brains of blue America believe in the science. The truth is much darker than that. As one person who replied to Leonhardt on Twitter noted, it's less about irrational fears of the shot and more that it became a badge of honor to remain unvaccinated. It was even seen among many Republicans as traitorous to cave and get the vaccination. It's traitorous if you don't take it. Yes, there are some morons who really believe that the disease is a hoax or that vaccines contain sinister ingredients, which they don't. But it's unlikely that the most conservators are that dense. After all, they tend to live in communities where hospitals are overwhelmed with COVID-19 patients, and Facebook memorials to the dead are popping up on a daily basis, and millions of them can see the toll that vaccine resistance has taken on their communities, but they're digging their heels in anyway. Now the darker and harder truth is that it isn't really about intelligence or ignorance. It's technically about ignorance. It's about ideology, and specifically about how far a good chunk of the GOP base has become radicalized towards the politics of the insurrection. And more than half of Trump sycophants claim they want to secede from the Union, and nearly a third say that violence is a legitimate means to impose their will on the rest of the country. Endorsement of violence rises to nearly half of the Republicans if the question is abstracted to the idea that time will come for such tactics. In light of this, the willingness to roll the dice with COVID-19 makes more sense. Vaccine refusal is being presented in right-wing media as a noble act of resistance against what they refer to as democratic tyranny. And if you want to talk about tyranny and tyrants, take a look at Trump. Any effort to prevent the disease, even among children, is increasingly viewed as an attack on the Republican states of America. After the January 6th insurrection failed, the radicalized members of the GOP have had few options to exercise their materialistic fantasies against Joe Biden's administration, and refusing the vaccine isn't as sexy as taking up arms against the government, but it still plays with the glamorous notion of putting your body on the line for your political views until the threat stops being abstract and you end up in the hospital, that is, and war is always more romantic in fantasies than it is in reality. Notably, the Republican leaders aren't much interested in risking their own lives through a vaccine refusal, and faux news, which isn't even news, even has a corporate vaccine mandate. But that's even more evidence than that the vaccine refusal is structured along the metaphor of wars and armies, and the base voters are the foot soldiers, risking it all on the front lines while the leaders give orders from the safety of their vaccinated bubble. Now, this whole thing may sound fucking ridiculous, but in truth, the strategy is a smash and success, at least so far. And this was evidenced by the results of last week's off-year election when Democrats, demoralized by many things, but especially the ongoing pandemic, failed to turn out in numbers to compete with the fired-up GOP base. If this continues into the midterms, the already dim prospects for Democrats would get much worse. And this is what Republicans need to happen if Trump's next round of election theft scheming is to be successful. The January 6th insurrection was always doomed to a failure because Republicans simply don't have the votes to give Trump what he wanted, which was to overthrow the 2020 election results. And being able to steal the White House for Trump in 2024 depends on Republicans seizing enough power electorally between now and then to invalidate the Democratic votes on both the state and federal level. And refusing vaccines and prolonging the pandemic is one small way that the average GOP voter can do their part to help make the next coup stick. Now, with that being said, the situation is not fucking hopeless. But for one thing, evidence shows that GOP vaccine refusal can mostly be overcome with the vaccine mandates. The resistance fantasies of vaccine refusers tend to crumple pretty quickly once real consequences come into play. As the relentless drumbeat of the deathbed regret stories demonstrates, and I don't regret these people dying, basically, and I don't even pity them. And moreover, as Leonhardt wrote, the Republican America has probably built up more natural immunity to COVID from prior infections than the blue America. I doubt that. Immunity from the infection is less effective than immunity from vaccination, but both are contributing to the rapid decline in cases that were in the case rates since the summer. And there's a real chance that the army of vaccine refusers falls apart like so many armies do by attrition. And by this time next year, the story may very well be about how Republicans bet big on the vaccine refusal strategy, and the only thing they accomplished was killing off their own people by the thousands. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.